Welcome to the Impact Stage here at Techsylvania. We have Mei Wen from the Sino-European High-Tech Zone Offshore Innovation Center, which is the first European-oriented innovative space in Northwest China. Exploring the innovative science and technology space, it aims to accelerate the promotion of international technology transfer and help science and technology projects enter the Chinese market. Mei Wen is an Oxford HBS Singularity U educated engineer turned entrepreneur and investor. She has 15 years of experience in robotics engineering and data science and advises governments and corporations on exponential technologies and digital transformation. Formerly CEO of Startup Sweden and co-founder of Frogleap, an EU-funded digital health accelerator and co-working space, she worked for Morgan Stanley, McKinsey & Co., and IBM before founding Upgrade and Yinvest, where she carries out her community building and advisory roles. Speaking today on Enter the Dragon, how European companies can enter the Chinese market, an invitation from the ancient imperial capital. Please welcome Mei Wen to the Impact Stage.
Thank you, Trevor. So happy to be here. And this is the first time I experienced this in the virtual world. So excited. So yes, so my talk today is going to be about doing business and especially technology business in China. And here we are in 2020, which is a very special year. Well, the dragon never really sleeps. Here's going to be my talk. I'm going to give a little bit short introduction and talking a little bit about some macro trends you might already heard about that's going on in China. And later on, I'll be diving a little bit deeper into three of my projects, Entrepreneurs, Project Kitty Hawk, and later on talking a little bit more about Xi'an High-Tech Zone. So let me first go through a brief introduction. I think you guys already heard a little bit. I'm Chinese-Swedish. I grew up in China. I moved to Sweden when I was 10 years old. So most of my education is mostly Western. I studied in Sweden, later at Oxford in the UK, at Harvard, Singularity in the US. So I see myself more sort of as an international citizen of the world. And I have worked in banking, in consulting, in technology, and most recently, in the last few years, I'm working primarily only with technology startups in the health and wellness sector, as well as data science and blockchain. So now a little bit a primer of China's tech landscape. It has happened a lot in the last decade or two, and I would summarize it as the front imitation to innovation. And there's two phases. At the very first phase, Chinese government has put regulation, banned companies such as Google, which allowed Chinese companies such as Alibaba, Baidu, and Tencent. They're essentially a Chinese copy of the Facebook and Google and Amazon of the world. And later on now, we're in this stage, we're moving more towards a Chinese-led innovation. There's a government-led policy that's called Made in China 2025. And this is trying to make Chinese-made products more attractive, as well as to secure more to like Chinese independence from Western technologies. And as you probably already know about the big three, the three bats, the Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. The valuation of these companies go up and down a little bit, but they are around $700 billion US valuation, sometimes even more, especially for Tencent, Alibaba. And now after COVID-19 happened, there has been more volume of goods that's been shipped. So for Alibaba, the valuation has shot up more recently than ever. Baidu, which is the Chinese equivalent of a engine, is valued at much smaller market cap. And this has to do with that most of the search options you can also find already in Tencent, which is the Chinese Facebook. It's almost most interactions, that's where you go through the WeChat app to access the internet. And here we're going to do talk a little bit about the new generation. ByteDance that owns, for example, the TikTok app that has been very much in the news lately due to conflict with the US government. And then we have Mei Wen, which started essentially as a Groupon copy, where you can also buy food and other products to have them delivered. And then you also have Didi. And Mei Wen especially has also shot up a great deal in valuation. Some say it has exceeded more than $100 billion valuation. However, these numbers do go up and down. So from day to day, this might have changed. And then some of the companies that you may or may not have heard of, these are in the AI surveillance industry, such as SenseTime, Tour, Face++, CloudWalk. They're all more than billion-dollar companies, and they're mainly doing things like facial recognition, such as if you walk into an office building, they automatically recognize your face, or they can geolocate you from a map. This company is also starting to build an ecosystem that can build on top of each other. And this is also one of the reasons that China is one of the leading actors within AI and surveillance. And then we also have the hardware giant, Xiaomi, which is the Chinese equivalent of maybe Apple. They make smartphones, but also other appliances, such as the voice assistant, smart assistant you have at home. They also make vacuum cleaners and all sorts of appliances. Their value at probably even more now at north of $40 billion US. And then another company called BYD. This is the electric vehicle market Chinese leader, and it's also the largest manufacturer of electric buses in China. And just for comparison, in China, every year there's 500,000 electric buses that are being made, compared with less than 1,000 in the US. And then we also have a DJI. It's the first Chinese globally dominant consumer brand, especially in the drone market. They also competing with companies such as GoPro, and they're making camera equipment as well. And here I'm talking a little bit about what has changed or what's in the process of Chinese companies versus maybe the other biggest market for technology, the US market. US still leads in terms of creation, in terms of core technologies and innovation. However, in terms of adoption stage, Chinese company, because of sheer size of the consumer market, tend to be able to move a little bit faster. This has a few reasons. One is due to the lack of a legacy system. For example, they can leapfrog not having a credit card system in place. So people automatically go directly to mobile payment. And China has built, for example, Tencent and also Alipay. They have together built some of the biggest digital banking system in the world. And the government has been very supportive of technology as well, and really pushing for this to be adopted. And also there's a very high iteration process going on due to competition. And this is some of the advantages of entering Chinese markets, especially if you have a consumer-facing product. And here I'm going to dive a little bit deeper of some of my projects. I co-founded Chinapreneurs out of Sweden from needs that while I was running Startup Sweden, I would get into contact with companies that I want to go to China in terms of getting Chinese investors, Chinese vendors, as well get in contact with the manufacturer partners. So we started organizing meetups, also roadshows to connect these entrepreneurs with their partners in China, as well as bringing some of the Chinese entrepreneurs to come and speak to us. So we hosted the first time when Alibaba came to Sweden, we hosted them to give a talk. And previously, we also hosted Carl Pei. That's one of the co-founders of OnePlus, the mobile phone, when they were just launching their earliest versions. I'm also a board advisor of a project called Kitty Hawk. It's a collaboration between Alibaba, the Swedish company, Teranet, as well as Daimler, looking at the point-to-point delivery autonomous vehicle sector. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about Xi'an High-Tech Zone, which is a government-funded project, which I'm an ambassador for. So first, let's talk about Trenopreneurs. It's business network. So if you look for the hashtag Trenopreneurs, both on Facebook and on WeChat, you will find a group. And I'll be giving out my contact information at the very end of this presentation. So feel free to contact me if you want to join. We host meetups both virtually and physically. Otherwise, it's a professional networking group where you can post, ask for information and questions and make friends that way. And Trenopreneurs has been in existence for the last 5 years or so. And Kitty Hawk is right now in a pilot phase. So this is looking into how do we build an open platform where actors in the smarter city industries and in the mobility industry are working with autonomous vehicles, both when it comes to cars, trucks, or drones, can connect into the same system, and also can identify events in a lightning fast way. So if any of you is working on this area and interested in getting in contact with me, I'm very interested to hear from you. And this is from a chance encounter when I met Jack Ma at one of the World Economic Forum meetings, and then we kept in contact, and this is how they came to Sweden and later on be part of this project. So now I'm going to the main part of this talk, which is going to talk about the Xi'an High-Tech Zone. And they are establishing a European base for knowledge exchange, also for attracting both talent and technology companies to enter the Chinese market, especially in Xi'an High-Tech Zone. And you probably heard about Xi'an because of the Terracotta Army. Xi'an was the ancient capital of China, and it's geographically in the center of the map of China. I currently have a population of 12 million, and just a little bit bigger than my home country, Sweden. And in 2019, last year, it was classified by United Nations Urban Development Report as one of the cities, emerging cities with the highest potential. So now a little bit more about Xi'an High-Tech Zone. This initiative was initially planned in the 90s, but really was developed just in the last 5 years when they constructed National Independent Innovation Demonstration Zone and became the core area of free trade for the province. And as we're speaking now, there's the 12 towns or streets, so as it's called, and it's one of the top 3 zones in China that have a science and technology part, and is looking to be the. And currently, you have a growth rate of more than 30%, which is almost unheard of here in the West. And the gross product is about 23 billion US annually, with total import and export volume of almost 300 billion yuan. And the industries that this tight zone is especially welcoming and open to is in the electronics and information industry, as well as the modern manufacturing and modern service industries. And some of the companies that's already located in Xi'an, about over hundreds of the top 500 multinational companies, such as we see here ICP, Intel, IBM has already established offices. There's also over 145 domestic overseas listed companies in this zone. So this zone is what they called a 12-hour traffic circle, which has access to airport, railway, highway, subway, and have access to about half of China's population within a 12-hour reach. A little bit about the funding that's been provided for this special high-tech zone. So if you are a startup looking to develop your product market fit, there's a strategic emerging industry guidance fund that's worth $10 billion US. And then there's also another $15 billion high-tech industry development and M&A fund looking at companies that's at a little bit later stage. And here, again, high-tech zone, the Xi'an high-tech zone is ranked, its competitiveness is ranked as third in China, just after some of the first-tier cities. And so there's abundance of human resources. There's universities and postgraduate students. There's over 300,000 university graduates as of today. There's education facilities, schools, over 200 of them within this area. There's also 13 incubators and 58 creative spaces. And here is just a selection of the special zones that has already been built. Depending on the type of business you're running, there's a software park for software services. There's a Jijian for biomedicine. There's a Chang'an for telecom companies. And there's also a Kaotao tech industry base for new energy vehicles. And there's also be more special tech zones being developed as we speak, that focusing on, for example, accelerating entrepreneurship or looking into import and export. So what can Xi'an high-tech zone provide? The government provide policy services, intellectual property services, entrepreneurship support. It provides investment, commercial services, financial management, and also invite people to activities such as entrepreneurship events. So those are all these things that the government will be able to provide for you if you get in contact. And so what kind of people is Xi'an high-tech zone looking for? So they're looking for people who have ideas and want to start business in China. It could be startup with projects but no funding. But it could also be entrepreneur who already have companies in Europe and want to expand their business in Chinese market. Or they are also looking for investors who want to invest in China and who just simply want to do business with China. And what's the process like to get your projects or company landing in China? First, come and talk to me. I'll be putting you in touch with the people who are responsible for this project. They'll do a project collection and selection. And the next step, they will be contacting the relevant contact partners in Xi'an government departments and related enterprises. They'll help you to find a Chinese partner or contact person to support. And together you'll be finishing setting up a business in China and figuring out all the logistics. And they'll help you to apply for a series of market access permits to allow you to do business in China, and help you to guide you to develop the market together. So this is the end of my presentation, and I'm looking forward to see you in China, either virtually or in person. And feel free to get in touch with me. This is my contact details. And for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to open up for Q&A questions. If you have any things that you want to discuss about, I'm going to go look through the chat. So that's for me.
Hey. Would you like to take some questions, or?
Yeah, if there's a questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I guess we can leave people some time to type, but I have a couple questions. So
Yeah,
you said
sure, go ahead.
you moved to Sweden when you were 10 and were educated in the UK. What was the difference in education like between Sweden and the UK?
I actually went to something called International Baccalaureate. So that's a quite international education. It's not Swedish per se. And when I went to UK, I would say in students in the UK, they go through A levels, which is even more specialized. For A level, you usually only choose 3 topics, whereas with the IB, you choose 6 topics. If you study in the Swedish system, you choose even more topics. So there's a depth to what you can study at A level compared with maybe the Swedish or American system. So we had many exchange students from, say, Ivy League schools, such as MIT. And when they came to Oxford, they found it difficult to keep up, just because in the US, I think they just study more broadly, whilst in the UK.
Yeah, because I just took my mug to the kitchen. I went to Jesus College at Oxford.
Oh, cool. I
do have one more quick question. Excuse me, curiosity. Yeah. What do you think is the biggest misconception about the business environment in China in terms of just your average, Western or American businessman?
I think China is still such a young country. You only just celebrated 70 years of establishing, and you can tell it's moving very fast, and not everything is known. In some parts, it's still a little bit of a wild west. So something I would suggest, recommend for people who are doing business in China for the first time is that don't make a super packed schedule. Make sure that you leave room for coincidences, chance encounters, and there are things that might take longer, and you definitely want to schedule in some extra time. And even just for if you have a meeting, always make sure you keep an extra chair there, because the people you're in meeting with might not necessarily be the people that are in charge or the people you need to talk to, but they probably know someone who is. And if the meeting goes well, they might just call that person, ask them to come and join you. And so I think a lot of things, it's, if you ever been to Burning Man, I will make the analogy that anything can happen, and sometimes you can lose the track of time. And just be very open to know that there are so many things you don't know, and you would not know until you're on the ground and start digging and start exploring. And I think that's, for people who like that way of working, that's actually very exciting, because you are literally developing your business.
I'm originally from California, and my complexion doesn't agree with the Nevada desert, so I'm not Burning Man yet. But no, I think what you said, it was very interesting, because I've done business in Romania the past 6 years. And obviously, coming from America originally, what you described is similar in some ways to Romania as well. They're about to have their 31st year post-communist. So, some things that, I would expect, or maybe Americans would expect to be faster, you have to be patient, and you have to understand that it's still a, growing process. And it seems like China's the same, from what you said.
Yeah, I think in Sweden, there's very well-defined processes in place, so you're less dependent on maybe personal connection, personal charisma, whereas it's China is moving more towards having a structure, but there's still a lot of things that has to do with your own personality.
And, in America, it's very similar to that too. It's still, even though they try to say rule of law, it is about, who you know a lot of the time. So, well, I guess thank you so much for coming here to Texylvania.
Yeah, it's super fun to be here.
We have 5 minutes if you want to continue talking, or if you want to end it, we can end it. It's all up to you.
Well, we can keep on chatting.
I have 5 minutes to introduce the next person. So, for someone who has never traveled to China like myself, what would be the city you recommend that they see?
I think For sightseeing, I love my home city, Beijing. There you have the Forbidden City and some of the culturally important monuments. So for sightseeing, I would recommend that. I love Tibet. I love the Himalayas. So for culture, I would suggest go to Chengdu to see the pandas. For technology startup, obviously Shenzhen. Go to Hong Kong first and then cross over. And there's a new bridge, super fast. Go to Shenzhen, have a look. That's the Silicon Valley of China. Shanghai would be the equivalent of, I don't know, a cross between LA and New York.
Yeah, because I mean, it's kind of overwhelming when you look, because I mean, I don't know how most people look it up, but I go on Wikipedia and I see the size of the populations of some cities, like, I can't pronounce it correctly, but Guangzhou is like 35 million people, right? Or like 30 million. You get a lot of these cities that are so huge, and I just find it fascinating. So thank you for taking the time to answer that.
Yeah, it's completely different monster, different size, and therefore China has. I mean, some of its advantage of the market size is also its disadvantage. That there's so many actors in the marketplace, and they can act just as fast as you are. So as a foreigner coming into the Chinese market, I would definitely recommend to have a Chinese partner on the ground, or have someone who has been on the ground for many years. I think that's definitely what made Apple distinguish itself from Google and other companies. So they've been in the Chinese market for years before they did any sort of launch. And so I would definitely recommend people to spend some time getting to know what you're.
Awesome. And then one more quick question that I just have personally. How hard is it if you speak Cantonese to then be able to speak Mandarin or understand Mandarin if Cantonese is
It's a very different dialect, but the characters are the same. I think Canton is only in the Canton region and in southern China, which in Shanghai is a different dialect. But if you speak Mandarin or English, nowadays people do speak English, you can get by.
Cool. Well, I thank you for your time today. It was an awesome talk. I'm glad we got these last few minutes to talk as well.
Yes, thank you so
hopefully
much.
You'll be able to be back next year and we can do it in person in Cluj, because it's a great experience to be there. But we make do this year and do it online. So thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And I would love for you guys to come and check out some of our virtual events, maybe with China entrepreneurs. So make sure to join the group, both Facebook and
please
WeChat.
do that. Thank you, Mei. We'll see you guys in the next session. Bye.